Welcome back for another brand new episode of IDTALK4ED Live, the show for the unsung heroes of education. I'm your host, Kwame Sarfo-Mensah, and if this is your first time tuning in to the podcast, we welcome you and we hope that you return back for future episodes and new content. And if you are a returning listener or viewer of the podcast, we welcome you back, and we hope that today's episode is one that you find informative, enlightening, and insightful. So, before we get to the main conversation, I ask that you all press that red subscribe button if you are watching from YouTube so you can get future notifications on new episodes of the podcast as well as other visual content. And we also welcome any donations if you love what you're hearing on the podcast. So you can see the Cash App handle, which is $ IDTALK4ED, or you can make a donation at Venmo at KwameSM. We welcome all donations, big and small, and that will help us continue to improve the podcast and bring more phenomenal guests in. And also, we are on all other streaming platforms. So if you're someone that's listening through audio, you can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and other streaming platforms. And we're always looking for feedback on any of our episodes. So if there was something about the episode that really hit you in the spirit or just really resonate with you, we love to hear that. So make sure you leave a review on Apple Podcast and follow us on Instagram with our handle IDTALK4ED Live. Thank you kindly. So today's episode is one that I think all of you will find inspiring and motivating. Today's guest is someone who is an icon of perseverance. She is an inspiration for so many school leaders, but most specifically, women. And I don't want to go too deep into the story, but all I'm going to say is you may need to get a tissue box if you're someone that's an empath and you get emotional when you hear, certain stories. But this is a story that I think a lot of you will be touched by for sure. And I'm just so excited to have today's guest on to share her story and just how she's been able to navigate this world of education and do the work that she's doing in her native Camden, New Jersey, which we'll talk a lot about today. So without further ado, I want to bring on Principal Fatihah Abdur-Rahman to talk about her story, her life, and what brings her into this important work that we call education. So let's get this conversation started. Bring her on. Hello.
Hello, hello, hello. I was looking for a tissue because I'm like, wait a minute, I'm the biggest crybaby. So hopefully we won't be crying. Hopefully we won't be crying.
No, it'll be tears of joy, if
Yes,
anything.
yes, of overcoming. Amen.
Yes. But how are you today?
I'm awesome. I'm awesome. It's a beautiful day, and I'm excited to be on the Identity Talk for educators. So I've been a long time follower, and so super honored to be a part of this show.
Likewise, and I have to say, uh, you are just joy. Like every time I see you, whether you're doing the morning announcements for your Forest Hill students, whether you're doing a read aloud, I don't think you have a bad day. You just
Oh, I
always
do.
happy.
I do.
No,
But you
you
know what? I think one of my favorite poems that I had to recite growing up was "Attitude," and it just simply says, longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude attitude to me is more important than anything. And so, long story short, I choose each day what attitude I'm going to embrace for that day. And I choose joy. I choose joy despite the whatever I'm going through, despite parents yelling or students having issues or teachers having issues. I choose joy because if I can put my head down at night and say, I touched one child that day, my living's not in vain. So I choose joy.
Oh, absolutely. And we all need to take heed to that advice. But let's get started from the beginning.
Yeah.
So, I already mentioned, you grew up in Camden, New Jersey. So, as someone who was next door in Philadelphia, attended Temple University, I've heard many stories about Camden, and it's not the easiest place to live in. But you know what? There is still joy within that.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to
Yeah.
just focus on the negative. We definitely want to touch on some of the positive things that people may not know about the city of Camden because there
Yeah.
are some great things going
Oh,
on.
absolutely.
So we'd love for you to just share just your story growing up and
Yeah.
what brought you into the education field.
Yeah. So a little correction. I actually was born in Philadelphia. My father and
Oh,
my
okay.
mother, yeah, my father and my mother, they they decided that they were going to get us out of the city, and they bought some land in Williamstown, New Jersey, which is not too far from Camden, and we moved there. How I got to Camden is growing up, I grew up a Muslim, and my masjid and my family, all of my family lived in Camden. And so Camden is a second home to me. But how I got into education, I can tell you growing up, I did not think I was going to be a teacher. That was far from my mind. I actually wanted to be a lawyer. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer until I shadowed one and
Oh,
saw that
wow.
she was writing and studying and doing all this stuff. I'm like, this is not me. Um, it just seemed like it was an isolated job, and all she was doing was researching. And I knew that I had a personality that was meant to be touching a lot of lives. And although a lawyer does the same, it didn't feel right to me. And so I fell upon education by mistake. uh, uh, I know we'll get a little bit later in my story, but I was working at a children's museum, and first I started off as the floor help, and I was just cleaning up the children's museum floor. And then they invited me to do birthday parties, and they said, she has a gift. And, I was adding my own little thing to these birthday parties, and which my little thing was education. And then they transferred me to doing workshops. And from there, I fell in love with teaching. I was really good at it. Very surprising. I thought I was really good at it. And I decided to shift and go into education as an assistant teacher for Head Start. And that's where I got upset. I got upset because I saw many of my students and their siblings, their older siblings coming in, struggling to read. And these kids were in fourth and fifth and sixth grade, and they were struggling to read. And I knew that, I wanted to take this anger that I was feeling, because it was real anger, and empower myself. I looked at a lot of teachers and I said, well, if I'm upset, then I need to do what they're doing. I need to get an education. At that time, I did not have an education, and decided to do that, to get an education in education. And it just changed my whole life.
Wow. And I know you've pretty much been open about, your story.
Yeah.
Um, being a teenage mom and even going through homelessness at
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
point. And as someone who's taught middle school students for most of my career, I've had students, end up getting pregnant at even earlier ages and
Yeah.
not really knowing how to move forward. So I'm interested in knowing when you had, your two children who are now grown and
Yeah.
doing phenomenal things.
28 and 26.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know one of them is going down the same path you are in education. I
Yeah.
understand.
She's a teacher now, a fourth
Yeah,
grade
wow.
teacher like I was. So yeah.
See,
Yeah.
look at that.
Yeah.
Keeping the legacy going. But when you are going through, just being a teenage mom and going through homelessness, because I mean, I think you had your two children by the time you're 19.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, as a 19-year-old, I can imagine how I would have reacted, how I would have moved forward if I had a child that young. But you managed to figure it out and create
Mm.
a path for yourself. So I'd love to hear, more about just that
Yeah.
story and how you're able to persevere.
Definitely wasn't easy. I mean, a lot of I
Right.
look back and I go, wow, um, I'm very shocked at how I even like how I made it. I just got an opportunity to look at a video and I'm like, wow, that my story is, such a phenomenal story. And I don't think I would have believed it if I was on the outside of it. Um, I remember growing up, it was very difficult for me. And I told you I grew up a Muslim, and so with that, it wasn't a accepted religion. I went to a predominantly white school, and I remember being called Aunt Your Mama. I remember being teased, and that middle school age was hard on me, and
Yeah.
I had the trauma. My mother was mentally ill growing up. And so, I had to go through that. And my father not knowing how to deal with my mother mental illness, there was a lot of abuse in the home. And so when we talk about the adverse childhood effect, I mean, I look at that and I go, oh my goodness, not knowing that that's what I was going through, the trauma at that time, was very traumatic. And so I found myself in middle school harming myself. I was cutting myself. I was doing harmful things. And by the time I got to high school, my mom was committed to a mental hospital and, just operating out of anger. Um, you know, and so as a young girl, you look for love in all the wrong places. And I thought I found love and ended up being pregnant. Uh, which impacted school for me. And now, fast forward, I'm with these two girls struggling by myself. And I remember the turning point for me in my life. I try not to show my kids you know, I choose to keep them because it was a choice. But I really tried not to show them what we were really going through at that time. I couldn't get assistance. I don't know why. Couldn't get assistance. I couldn't get help. And I remember coming home to an eviction notice,
Mm.
and I didn't have anywhere to go. I literally didn't have anywhere to go. People always say, "Well, why didn't you go home?" Well, you got to remember, home was my mom was in a mental hospital. My
Right.
father was abusive. That wasn't an option. That was not an option for me. And so I decided to go to try to get some help. And it was as if the lady just looked through me like I was nothing and shook her head and said, "Those poor girls." And I thought at that moment, my girls could do so much better without me. And so when we talk about what kids go through during trauma, that fight, that flight or flee, I definitely was ready to run away. Run away
Right.
for me at that time was to let it go, let it end it all. And so I had tried to commit suicide several times, and this was the time that I knew it was going to be over. This was going to be the day. And I remember my oldest daughter looking at me and saying, "Mommy, I'm in the bathroom crying my eyes off. I have my 3-year-old on one side, which is my oldest daughter, and my 1-year-old on the other side. And I'm crying because I didn't want to lose them. I didn't want to leave them, but I knew I thought that was the best thing for them. And I remember my oldest daughter saying, "Mommy, why are you crying?" And I told her, I'm like, "I'm lonely and I'm broken." And she said, "Mommy, you're not lonely. You're not broken. You have me, you have Cheyenne, 3 years old, and you have God." And that was the moment that was the moment I looked up and I'm like, if I can fight, I'm gonna fight. And I didn't know at that time like how I could do it. I tried, like I said, I went to um, work at a children's museum. I just was trying to fight. And I realized that the only way that I can get out was through education. That was my only way I can change it for my girls. And if I could get out, if I can get out, everything would be different. And so I tried community college, but having children and having, a full-time job was hard. And so I wasn't doing, I did poorly in school.
Right.
But I knew that was my ticket. I didn't want to give up. I didn't want to give up. And so I made the biggest leap of faith when my youngest was 5 and my oldest was 7. I said, I'm just going to leave it all. Like, I can't do it here in New Jersey. I have to go. And I decided to enroll myself in a historically Black college in Alabama. Never been there, ever. Never been to Alabama, but something about it said I needed to go. And in 2001, I packed my 5-year-old and my 7-year-old up in a car, crying, thought I was having a nervous breakdown.
Oh wow.
And we moved. We moved to Alabama. We got an education, which was not easy. We struggled many a nights without, I didn't, it didn't just happen like, oh, boom, I go to Alabama, I have money now. I still struggled and I wasn't on assistance at that time. And so I remember just having limited amount of food and trying to take them to school, not knowing anybody, but just trusting God. Trusting God will get us through this time. And he did. And I look back and I'm like, I don't know how, but that 4.5 years, because I didn't go 5 years. I struggled in the beginning, but 4.5 years later, I graduated cum laude. Um, I went to school on an academic probation. I need y'all to understand that. And I graduated cum laude. And to see my girls see that, to see their mom like finally get us out of whatever we were in, I knew that I felt like Harriet Tubman.
Wow.
I couldn't just be satisfied with myself. I had to go back and get some more. And so I decided to go back to New Jersey, went to Camden, New Jersey, and taught as a 4th grade teacher. And something about what I was doing was amazing, I guess. I humbly say that. And my first year teaching, I became teacher of the year. Second year, teacher of the year. I was a teacher of the year for like 6 years straight. And then 2 years, 2 years in after graduating, somebody said, you know what, you should be something, something, something. And I'm like, does this lady know I just graduated 2 years ago? Because I was older. I wasn't a
Yeah.
young,
Right.
teacher. Um, and so I got selected to be part of this MPA program, my Master's of Public Administration. And when they found out I was only teaching for 2 years, they kicked me out. But Rutgers decided to keep me, which was a blessing. I had to pay for it myself, but they decided to keep me. And 2 years after graduating, I got an MPA in public administration. And I was also blessed to go to South Africa to study children of trauma, because that's, I went through trauma. My daughters were going through trauma at the time. And that was a blessing. And then I just fell in love with education. That was my ticket. And so I got an EDD. I got a, no, wait a minute, back up. I got an ED. I got an MED, a
Mhm.
master's in education. And then I continue to keep going. I got an EDS in curriculum instruction. And from there, I got rift from my job, even though I was teacher of the year, which rift means I got reduction in force. And so I got kicked off the job, but it was a blessing in disguise. I didn't know that at the time. And the school that I went to, they asked, like, why are you still teaching? You need to be leading somewhere. And so
Right.
kicking and screaming in 2014, I was not something I was looking for, but I was named one of the founding leaders of a charter school in Camden. It was the second lowest performing school in the state of New Jersey. And
Mm.
we were able to take that school in 3 years and change it tremendously. And in 2018, I got another itch. What, I knew that I needed to move on, but I was moving on as an assistant teacher to public school. And again, they were like, no, we want to consider you as a principal. And so in 2018, I was blessed to become the eighth principal of Forest Hill Elementary School, where I am now. And news alert, I just was recently appointed as the director of school support. So I'm going to be transitioning from being a principal in December to being the director of school support, where I'll be supporting 12 schools and their leaders on changing the narrative. So God
Wow.
keeps elevating, and I'm like, I don't know.
Mm.
Um,
God is good.
God is
God
good.
is
He's
good.
good. He's good.
Wow.
But it just shows you wherever you find yourself, whatever situation you find yourself in, if you can look up, you can get up. And if you can get up, you can rise up. And I'm not, my story is not anything special. For me, it was education. That's what was my ticket. And like I said, like Harriet Tubman, I'm going to go back and get as many as people as I
Mm.
possibly can, because if it can do it for me, then it can do it for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whew. People, we're just scratching the surface. We're only 20
Yes,
minutes in. We scratching the surface. I'm
yes,
sure
yes,
we
yes,
have some tear jerkers out there already.
yeah.
Man. So I want to backtrack. I do want to talk about Forest Hill in a
Okay,
second, but I do
okay.
have some questions. So when you were in Alabama, so I know you attended Oakwood
Yeah,
University, correct?
yes, I did.
Now, Oakwood University, HBCU.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, had you not attended Oakwood, and let's say you went to a PWI,
Hmm.
do you believe that your educational journey and your overall life trajectory would have been different?
Absolutely. It would definitely have been different. And I don't think I would have been who I am today. I think the decision to go to specifically Oakwood, I had no other decision but Oakwood. And I can't explain to people why Oakwood, but it was Oakwood for me. Um, I found my voice. I did not have a voice.
Mm,
I went to Oakwood without a voice. I did not have a voice. I had low self-esteem. Remember, I was the cutter. I was the person who self-harmed herself. That didn't
right.
change. That did not change. And so I found a voice there. I found leadership there. I was a vice president. The only reason why I wasn't president, they wanted me to be president because I was a mom and I had to take care of my kids.
Right.
Um, but I was the vice president of the education department, and I found leadership there. I found my voice. I found I just became this person that I did not know existed in me. I thought I really only gave myself 1 year. That's how low I thought of myself. I gave myself 1 year. I thought
Mm,
I was going through a nervous breakdown. I didn't understand why I was packing my kids up and going to this state that I have never been to, no support. So I really literally gave myself 1 year. And when I constantly wasn't like I was failing, I wasn't in the beginning. It was hard to find my balance, to get a groove, to learn how to, study and be a mom and to find work. And like I could not find a balance. And so I wasn't, my grades suffered because of that.
mm,
And my girls became my biggest supporters. They were teaching me, like I tell everybody, my daughters have been in college ever since the age of 5 and 7, because they were literally after they did their homework, they were quizzing me. um, and
wow.
but I had professors there who invested in me, who really embraced me, didn't feel sorry for me. They held me accountable, but they embraced me and they loved on me and they understood my story and my desire and my will to, like, I have to do this. It wasn't an option. It wasn't something that hopefully it'll happen. I had to do it. Like I had to graduate. And they were there to encourage me when I wanted to give up. They were there to say, you know what, let me teach you how to write because I didn't know how to write. Let me teach you how to do this. Let me teach you how to do that. I don't think I would have gotten that experience had I gone somewhere else. I know, not I don't think, I know I would not have gotten that experience in a predominantly white school. I would not have. Um, and I really I thank God that I was able to find a historically Black college that fit my needs, and saw me to the end. I will forever, like, I was trying to get my daughters to go to Oakwood, but they were like, no, we did that already. So, but I know I believe in, the importance of supporting historically Black colleges and helping with identity. Especially when you don't have one. I did not have one. And again, growing up, I went to a predominantly white school. And, I felt less than. I felt like people didn't understand me. And, it's a horrible feeling to go into your locker and see Aunt Your Mama. Remember, Aunt Your Mama was a slave. This is a
Man.
depiction of a slave.
Mm-mm.
And to get that kind of a teasing and taunting, because of the how you dress and the color of your skin, and then to go to a school where there's so many people that, we're from different levels. Just because we all look the same, we're different, levels. But to find my identity, to find myself, and to find my voice, that is something I am so appreciative of Oakwood. And, I will always sing Oakwood praises.
Yes, and shout out to Oakwood University
Yes,
and all
yes,
the HBCUs. Um,
yes,
they serve an important purpose, especially during this age right now.
absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely.
so, throughout your story, there's this recurring theme of mental health,
Yes.
and I want to talk about that within the context of Black girls, because that's something that's been coming up not just recently,
No.
but
Mhm.
just generations after
Yeah.
generations. So I have Monique Morris's book Push Out, where she talks
Yes.
about this in great detail,
Mhm.
and I still need to crack it open. It's on queue on my
Gotta read
book
it.
list.
Gotta
It's on
read it.
queue.
Yeah.
It's on queue. But I want to know, just based on your experience and the work that you do with Black girls, who may be going through similar situations as you did, how much of an impact do you think the adultification and the misogynistic messaging has on the mental health of Black girls?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad you are asking this question. So every Sunday, faithfully, I send out the Hill blast to my
Mhm.
staff. And, in that blast, I asked them, are we living up to our values? Are we living up to our vision? And in our vision, we talk about this inclusive environment. We talk about all of this. And one of the things that I'm very disturbed in is I'm seeing a large number of our Black girls, um, being sent to the office for long periods of time, or being written up for very minor things. When I go into the classroom, I'm like, okay, I get the writing up, but if it's not a fear, it's disproportionate. So I'm thinking of this one young lady in my school, and struggling. She's struggling to find her identity. She doesn't feel like she fits in, and she tells me that I don't, the teacher doesn't like me. Now, I have to tell you, my school, while it is predominantly African American children, I have a predominantly, um, older white female, staff
Mm.
educators that, work with our kids. And what I'm noticing, not just from them, but for all of my teachers, that there's a large number of our girls that they don't feel safe. And because they don't feel safe in class, or they don't feel a sense of belonging, children will respond to these behaviors. And either, again, they're going to fight you, they're going to shut down, or they're going to like flee that situation. And so, um, I told I wrote my staff this morning, literally this morning, are we pushing these girls out? Are we pushing these girls out? Every time I go to school and see another girl walking the hallways, or see a girl um, n- just not feeling a sense of belonging in a classroom, what do we have to do? Like, what are our responsibility as a school to fix it? I know what I can do as a leader, but if we don't change the teachers, the culture of our school, then we're pushing our girls out. And I have to remind many of our staff members, and remind myself, these girls are only 10 years old.
Right.
The oldest girl in my school is 10 years old. They are children. But we're treating them as if, oh, she had an attitude. She's a child. Oh, she won't keep her mask on. Did you ask her why not? She probably is having hard time. Most of our African American children are struggling with breathing, and they have asthma, and they have issues. Have you asked them, do they need a break to, pull down her mask? I'm
Right.
seeing these, unfair um, write-ups, and I'm very disturbed by it. And they are young children, and it's not something that's happening in my fifth grade. My school is a K-5 school, and so it's not just my fifth graders that are being constantly sent out. It's my babies too, my 5-year-olds. And so when you asked about a duplication, you're absolutely right. Are we putting these unrealistic, um, just ideas about what these girls they're babies, they're children, and so from that, I about 5 years ago, I had a problem with a lot of our girls just fighting with one another, and in talking to them, you know i I knew that they needed more than just a suspension or anything like that. They needed
Right.
somebody to teach them how to be a young lady, or to teach them how to, one, um, understand their emotion, because it's a real emotion, but then also how to self-regulate those emotions. How do I self-regulate instead of hurting myself, instead of fighting, instead of fleeing? How do I self-regulate? And so teaching them that. And so from there, I started a group called Pearls. Pearls is an acronym that stands for positive. They're elegant, they're attractive, they're resilient, they're leaders, and they're sisters. And so that acronym, it has stemmed it, like we come in, we every Friday we would have our pearl meetings. They would dress up in their pearls, and it came about. I always wear pearls just because. And so
Where are
when
they
the
today? I
girls,
don't see them.
I don't have them. I have them right here. I have pearls. I always wear
All right,
pearls.
you got the
I,
okay.
I, I
So
don't, because
now
this
the
is
next,
not an
got
outfit for
you,
pearls. I'm sorry, for pearl
got you.
necklace, but I have it on my. I have it in my ears.
Nah,
So
I got you.
so I always wear pearls. So that particular day, I had pearls on, and I took it off, and I was telling them how precious this pearl was, and I was using it as an object lesson, and I was telling them like what that pearl went through to become a pearl. And from there, that's how this Pearl group came about, my mentoring Pearl group. And it started as an assistant principal, but as a principal, like the issues don't change. The girls still were going through these same issues, and they needed to learn how to be leaders. They needed to learn how to find their voice. They needed to learn how to self-regulate, and all of those different things that comes with trauma, opposed to just suspending and ignoring the behavior. And so just allowing them to be empowered. And so from that first time I did it at my school, we had something that called us our Pearl Tea, where women, very strong, powerful women that looked like my girls, came and started pouring pearls of wisdom in them, and
Mm,
building their pearls, building that chain of pearls that they were having. And it literally wasn't something that I sat down like, okay, let me write a proposal for that. It was just being responsive to, okay, Fatihah, go back to where you were, going to that school when you were a young girl, and not being understood, not really, going to school physically abused many a times, and no one even asking me, are you okay? um, and just the things that I was going through. So never forgetting what I went through, so that I can support the girls and also educate. I believe it's about education. We talk a lot about it in my school about biases. We talk a lot about privilege. We talk
Right.
about microaggression. Because many a times as educators, we don't realize we're doing these things until someone brings it to light. And so when I write these Wednesday every Sunday faithfully, when I do this corner where we're being reflective as educators, I really want us to be reflective. I want us to look at, like, why do we have a number of girls that are getting sent to the office? What's going on with that? Let's talk about that, and how can we fix it? Why do we have what are some I statements? Last week it was, I do not say. What do we not say? Oh, that's a girl's, that's a boy's job, or we don't say that because we don't genderify or anything like that. So I'm really trying to make sure that as a school, we are aware, and we address these things that are real. These are real situations that, many of our Black and brown girls go through on a daily basis. And, as long as I'm a leader, it's going to stop with me. It's going to stop with me.
Mm.
And we're going to break that prison to jail, that preschool to jail pipeline, because we all have a responsibility to make our schools one where kids, all children, feel safe, and all children feel like it is a learning environment where they feel nurtured. We're not only looking at their academic needs, but we're looking at their social and emotional needs, and being responsive to that.
And I think that's why it's important for us to adopt restorative approaches
Absolutely.
when
Absolutely.
dealing with behavior. So I've had a number of episodes in the past on this issue of just instituting restorative practices, not just in the classroom and not just within a circle practice, but
Yeah,
like it has to permeate throughout the building.
absolutely.
And as a school leader, you already know it's, when we talk about building a positive school culture, it starts with you. It starts with you setting the tone and modeling that so that the staff can see that. But it's different when you're a Black woman
Yeah,
in educational leadership because there are certain biases that are attached to you. So
absolutely.
when Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw talks about intersectionality and how oppression comes in the form of the different identities you may possess,
Yeah, yeah.
being a woman and then being Black, this is
And then being a
happening
leader.
within,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then being a leader as well. So
yeah.
this is happening within the educational context. So I'm interested in knowing from you, what have been some of the ups and downs that you've experienced throughout your journey being a principal at Forest Hill and just
Yeah.
other and your other stops as well?
Yeah, definitely a lot of ups. I have a lot of ups because, again, I choose joy. I choose
There you
joy,
go.
and to set that tone, set the atmosphere. I always believe in leading by example. I believe in, if I'm going to say that this is what we're going to do, you're not going to say, I'm not going to put it on you. You're going to see me lead by example. But, as an, and I think you hit it on the nail, as an African American woman who is a leader to a predominantly Caucasian staff, you get a lot of, and I have to question, you get a lot of pushbacks on things because of people privilege. Um,
Mm,
People may think they have the privilege of saying something to you, um, and I question it, because would you do it if I was a Caucasian man? No. Who came before me? I didn't, before me was a Caucasian man, and he did not get a lot of the pushback that I was getting, and that's just facts. But would you do it if I was a Caucasian man? And then would you do it if I was a Caucasian woman? Um, I always often ask myself that. And there's been a lot of level of disrespect. It's been a lot of level of disrespect. And not to say that you have to respect me because of my title, but yes, you have to respect me because of my title. Um, and respect me enough to know that I'm not going to lead the school astray. And you're always, whenever you're excited about an issue, like, i.e., I'm excited about making sure that restorative practice is a thing, social and emotional learning is a thing in our school, that we're looking at all of the whole child and not just the academic part of our child. That's a thing. We're looking at culturally relevant issues or curriculum. That is a thing for me. And when I express my passion for that, it's, again, you're labeled as the angry Black woman, when
Right.
you just can't be passionate about the topic. You have to be angry about the topic. And I'm learning, in the beginning, that bothered me. You tippy toed over different things, but I am learning unapologetically. I've been called to this work. I've been called to do the work that I'm being called to. And sometimes people are going to embrace it. Sometimes people aren't. And that can't be my issue. But my calling is to those children that I was called to serve. And if we're doing all that we're supposed to be doing for them, then my living is not in vain. I'm going to hurt a lot of people's feelings. And it's going to, and I don't want to say, oh, well, but oh, well, the biggest tip that I got from one of my mentor leaders was get a Q-tip. And I thought that was the harshest thing that she would say. Q-tip, simply, if you don't know what it means quit taking everything personal. And so I don't take it personal. It's not personal to me. It's personal when I am doing the things that I am called to do, and that is to educate these children. Then I'm not going to take your attitude or your privilege, your microaggression or whatever. I'm not taking it personal, because I have a calling that will happen, and I will see it through, uh, despite being called the quote unquote angry Black woman.
Mm. And this is interesting because I've had Principal Caffelli on the show. Shout out
Oh,
to Principal
nice.
Caffelli,
Yeah, yeah,
another
yeah.
great leader in the state of New Jersey.
Yes.
Um, a North Star of mine personally. And we talked about what it means for a Black school leader to have long-term sustainability in this field because of a lot of things that you mentioned. There are so many negative forces that are coming your way, and you have to figure out a way to get past that,
Yeah.
to persevere in order to stay on the job. And when you think about the pushback that you receive, and even your vocal advocacy for certain issues that are impacting students who look like us.
Yeah. Not just students that look like, all students. Every
Well,
child
all
should,
students.
every child should have a culturally relevant curriculum. Every child should have their social and emotional well-being should be met. Every child should be treated fairly and feel safe in the environment that they're in, especially our Black and brown children, because historically, they have not been.
Right.
We have policies and practices that are rooted in racism. Let's be honest of what it is. It's rooted in racism, and until we name that, until we talk about that, if if not if everyone, we can't say that everyone is equal or they're getting an equitable education, then we are not doing our jobs as educators. And so our responsibility is for every child, not just some children.
No, you're absolutely right. But we also know, like statistically,
Yeah,
it's had the greatest impact on students who
absolutely.
look like us. So you're dealing with these issues. You're trying to institute restorative practices in the school, emphasize social emotional learning, but at the same time, as a school leader, and we know how it works in education, success more often than not is measured by test scores,
Yeah,
measured by the data. And you and I know that it transcends that.
absolutely.
It transcends that, but unfortunately, if you don't get certain benchmarks on the test scores, you may be out of a job.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering for you, as a school leader, how do you personally measure success? What does success look like to you?
Hmm. Well, it definitely does look like achievement. So it looks like our kids achieving academically because we have to give them a fair um, opportunity to achieve in whatever field they decide to achieve in.
Hmm.
Um, but it also has to look at it. I always equate it with the research, right? We know that the impact of children attitude or their relationship towards how they feel about the school is directly related to their education. It's directly related to how they're going to achieve.
Yes.
So when a child feels like I belong, when a child feel like, this is a place of I feel safe and I can learn, then learning can happen. Learning will happen. That relationship piece is so critical in teaching a child. And so success means, to me, it looks like when they can identify, um, our children can identify those things, those tools that they need to achieve greatly, achieve in whatever field it is. And yes, I do expect academic excellence. I do. I'm that type of leader who expect my kids to do well on whatever. But it takes work to create that environment so that they can achieve academically. It takes work for us to sit down and look at that whole child. And so when I have 4 goals for our school. So if I have an academic goal, and then along with those academic goals, I have 2 other goals that we have to look at their social and emotional well-being and how that impacts that academic goal. We also have to look at um, decreasing attendance, like increasing attendance, excuse me. How do we do that? Because I know if they're not in school, they're not learning, then I can't, it goes back to that academics. And so we have to still focus on that. And so achievement, success means where our students are not only thriving in um, their social and emotional well-being, but they're also thriving in their learning. And I'm looking for that because we have a responsibility to break cycles. And we know that, again, education can be that force that will change the narrative for many of our children. Many of the children that I serve come to come from areas that are marginalized, come from areas that are underprepared and underrepresented and underserved. And so how do we change that? We don't just go, okay, let's give them resources. We teach them how to fish. We don't just give them the fish. We teach them how to fish, teach them about owning businesses, and teach them about being confident in who they are, because
Right.
all of that relates to achievement in the future. And so, I really look at success as we're looking at that whole child. And when we're addressing the whole child, our children will achieve. That was the thing that broke my cycle. And I know that's the thing that's going to break their cycle.
And I think the focus on the whole child is imperative.
Hmm.
And I say that because I've been in school districts where they may look at the number
Yeah,
or the percentages, but they fail to contextualize that data. They fail to find out why these numbers are the way they are.
absolutely.
And it goes back to us not meeting all the needs of the children,
Yeah.
right? Are they are they getting enough food at home? Are they coming to school hungry?
Yes.
If
Yes.
we're talking about attendance and truancy, it's not always the case where they're missing school because they want to miss school and they're trying to
Exactly.
play hooky.
Exactly.
Maybe they don't own a car. Maybe because of how certain neighborhoods are redlined, the school bus doesn't get to their neighborhood, so
Exactly.
they have to take public
Exactly.
transportation to get to school.
And I can't
Or
afford it this week. I have to
right,
make
they
a
can't
choice.
afford it.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
or
Yeah, I
yeah, it
call
might
that
be.
peeling back the layers. Um, when somebody gives me a problem, I'm like, great, that's a problem. Let's peel it back. Now, what's
Mhm.
the source of that problem? Let's keep
Yep.
peeling. Let's keep peeling, and let's keep addressing and addressing. And until we can get to the root, the real root of the problem, then we're just saying like what the problem is, and it's not helping our children. And you're right. So if I'm looking at they didn't get the 80%, why? What was it? Were they in school? Were they like what kind of interventions? Why? Did we make phone calls? Did we find out if their electricity was on? Did you reach out to the FOC? That's our family operator. Did you reach out to the family operator to meet that? Like why? There's no excuse why a child needs are not being met. How do we address them? We can't wait to be reactive. We have to be proactive in addressing our kids their needs. We really do.
No, absolutely. And one way
Yeah.
you're doing that is through the Rise Up scholarship program
Yeah.
that you started to support teenage, not just mothers but parents, because I do know
Yeah.
that there was a young man who
For our
did receive
first
a
time.
scholarship
Yes.
first time, so it's
Yes.
expanding to fathers as well. So talk to us about Rise Up, how it got started and how you continue to support teenage parents, in the South Jersey area.
Yes. So in 2018, I was super excited because both my girls graduated college. Um, and the one graduated with her, she went to Penn State. And that's my youngest. My youngest graduated with her nursing degree. She's now currently she's going for her doctorate in nursing. And then my youngest graduated from a college with her education. My oldest graduated with her college degree in education. She now has a master's and is working as a fourth grade teacher. And so I was super excited. I wanted to do something in honor of that accomplishment because the story is not finished. My story is not finished if they didn't if they didn't do what they were needed to do because again, statistics says because my kids were children of a teenage mom that they were going to be poor academically, that they were going to have low self-esteem, that they were going to be teenage mothers themselves. And to see my girls, although we went through so much, I could tell you stories where it, and it wasn't when they were babies. My kids were older when we were really, really struggling, where we didn't
Mm.
have electricity and we didn't have hot water. And the only way that we could take a shower was because I had a membership to Planet Fitness. And that's how we
Wow.
took a shower every day. And so in high school, they were still able to be on the honor roll, despite not having electricity, despite not having hot water. We lived in the library because we didn't have the lights at home. So we had to go to the library every single day. We didn't own a television. So my girls read a lot. And so, despite all of those hardships, my girls were able to again go to Penn State, and which is an amazing school. She went on the main campus, and then my other daughter, she started off as at a historically Black college. She went to Clark University, and that was talking about identity. That was hard for her. She didn't find her identity there, so she did transfer to Rowan University, and for them to go through what they went through, I wanted to honor that. I wanted to celebrate their success in their honor. And so I started the Rise Up scholarship for our first time. I only had $500. So my first time I awarded one young lady $500. She was a teenage mom, just had her child, and I was doing it for South Jersey area children, and it just kept growing and growing. So to this year, we were able to, like I said, we were able to do one boy. So we did teenage parents this time, not just mothers. And we were able to bless the three of them with $1,000 and two of them with $500. So we were able to give out $4,000 to our children. And this time we also included, not only did we include the teenage parents, but I also included girls that went through trauma, severe trauma, and were able to persevere through that trauma and graduate and still go to college. And all of those things are dear to me. Uh, Being a teenage parent, that's dear to me. Going through trauma and still persevering, that's dear to me. And they're not the likely students that you're going to find with scholarships. We always give the scholarships to the brightest and the, ones that have it together.
Right.
And so for me, giving those, recognizing teenage parents and saying, we see your hard work, we see your efforts, and you're going to be your biggest cheerleader as you go through this. This is only $1,000, but the message behind that is, the tears just fell through all the girls and guys' eyes when we were able to bless them with $1,000, because for them it was hope that somebody sees me and someone understands what I'm going through and believes that I can finish this race. And again, I'm like Harriet. If I can get more, if I can do more, I would. But as much as God is blessing me, I'm going to get some more girls and some more guys and some more children that are experiencing trauma, and let them know that they can rise up. They can rise up, and I'm living proof of it. My kids are living proof of it.
Yes. And I just realized this. You didn't even mention the fact that you're actually a doctoral student right now.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Forgot about that
Like,
part. Yes,
like
yes,
you're doing the most in a good
yes.
way.
Yes, yes, yes. I will be getting my doctorate very soon. Like, so when I should have got my doctorate a long time ago. I started my doctoral program a while ago. But when I became a principal, it was like, Fatihah, you can't do everything.
Right.
So it was a little hard. So I took a very long break. And to my surprise, my school was like, nope, that was too long. And so we dropped you. And so I had to make the appeal recently, and they recently accepted me back into the program. So I am focused, I'm full time, and I found my groove. So that means I can't do all my social events like I used to, but again, it's a part of my story that I believe that I want children, I want parents, I want mothers, I want whomever is looking at my story to go, if she can do it, I can do it. There's no limitations to what you can do. Again, I started off as a teenage mom who could barely get an A. I got F's all through high school, and well, not all through high school, but all through college. I struggled in the
Right.
beginning, um, but if I can do it, you can too.
So my last question for a lightning round is,
Okay.
when is your book coming out? Because
I know.
you're
So
gonna have to write a book about
I
all this. You
have a
know that.
title. I have
A
a title.
memoir. You got to have a memoir about all this.
Yes. Again, true confession. I am not a writer. I'm like you. I went to school I'm good at math. I'm great at science. I was a math and science teacher, but writing, I'm growing into it. I say I'm not a writer, but I have a blog. My blog is called Morning Love Notes to God, and I also have a podcast that I I direct, so I have to speak a lot. That's called Born to Win in Education, and so I do a lot of writing. Although I say I'm not a writer, so I think it's just about me sitting down and writing it. So many people have said you got to write this book, and I remember starting writing this book during the pandemic, and I had the cover, I have the title. The cover looks really good too,
Mm,
and the title is beautiful. It's called "But God." Um, However, what I discovered is there was a lot of things, unresolved things that I did not know that I was still dealing with. And
yeah.
so in starting writing the writing process, I had to stop because it was emotionally hitting me, that things that I had forgotten about in my life. and things that I'm like, wow, do I really want to share this with people? Um, because it just like I wouldn't, we're taught as African American families, like, you don't tell your business. And so it was hard starting it. So I had to stop because I knew that it was some things that I needed to still resolve, and I am resolving those things now. But I do believe it's a story that it must be told because I can't make this stuff up. It has to be. It's encouraging me when I look back and say, wow, man, God, I'm that girl who was on the ground. That was me.
Mm,
I was that girl who cut herself. That was me. Um, and so, I think of it and I get so emotional because I look at myself and I'm like, I'm nothing what I used to be. I'm nothing of what I used to be. I'm in this big, beautiful house right now. And I remember like going from home to home to home to home. And, I just say, but God, if it wasn't for him, that changed my life, I would be dead. I wouldn't be here. I would be struggling. And, so it's coming soon. I just gotta work through the tears because it's hard to write when you're not writing about somebody else's life. You're writing about you, and it's hard. It's hard. It's hard, but it's coming. It's coming.
and when it does come out, it's going to be beautiful. So um, I think
Yes.
it's well worth the wait. I
Yes.
know it's gonna be worth the wait for sure. And as somebody who is self-published books, I feel you.
Yeah.
Writing was not my strong suit when I was growing up. And even today, even though I'm a much better writer and I write blogs and I do articles for these different platforms, I still have to work hard
Yeah.
to put that blog together. I still have to work hard to write a chapter, to finish the manuscript. It's a lot of work, but when
Yeah.
it's done, oh,
It
it's the
feels
greatest
good.
feeling when
Yeah.
it's done and you're able to hold it in your hands. Oh, it's the best feeling. It's like it's like when you give birth and you're like holding that baby for the first time. Like it has that feeling to it. But whew, I cannot wait for it to come out.
It's
All right,
coming. It's coming.
it's
It's coming.
coming. All right. So we're gonna get into the lightning round to
Okay.
close us out. So I have a few quick questions to ask you so people can learn more about you outside of the classroom and the school and everything.
Okay.
So, first question is, with all the work that you're doing, how do you exercise self-care? What's your favorite activity?
So I am a waterfall chaser. um, I like to go to waterfalls. During the pandemic, I learned I love hiking, and I like to hike to find different waterfalls in New Jersey. I think I went to every New Jersey waterfall. I now expanded to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area, and also Connecticut now. So I'm a waterfall chaser.
All right.
Yes.
Um, a pearl of wisdom for aspiring school leaders that you can share.
Um, So I'm going to share what the principal, my mentor principal told me. Get a Q-tip. Don't take it personal. Don't take it
Oh,
personal.
all right. A book that you're currently reading. It doesn't have to be educational. It could be for leisure as well.
Oh, I'm reading a book called Shift. It's a book about because I'm in the process of shifting. So it's a book about just shifting your attitude, your thoughts, and how to progress during that shift. So can't remember the author, but it is called Shift.
Shift. All right.
Yeah.
Um, do you have an all-time favorite movie?
All time, I'm not so I don't own a television and I don't really go to the movies. So, but all time favorite, oh, yes, I do. All time favorite movie would be You Got Mel. Don't ask me why, but it is.
Tom Hanks, right? With
Tom Hanks, yes.
and Meg Ryan.
Yes,
Classic. That's a
I love
classic.
love stories. I really love, I'm not a big horror. I don't like that. But any like romantic love stories, yes, I love that.
All right. Awesome. And lastly, if you can invite three influential figures, dead or alive, to dinner, who would they be?
Oh, definitely Harriet Tubman. I think I embody her. I feel like if I was living during her time, I would just like want to hang on everything that she was doing. I love her story because she was a boss. Like when you think about the ultimate boss lady, she was a boss lady. She
Right.
didn't have to go back, but she said, "I'm going back to get them." And I kind of think of myself like that. So Harriet Tubman would definitely be one. Michelle Obama, I absolutely love her. I love Michelle. I've written her so many times to invite her to Forest Hill. She hasn't gotten back to me yet. I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. But I love how she um, has her own identity. I think that's so beautiful that while she is the helpmate of a very strong man, she still had her own identity, and she just was beautifully displayed in doing so. So I love that. I would love to pick her brain and talk to her. So Michelle would be another one, and then my grandma. My grandma, I miss her.
Mm,
So I definitely think she is influential in my life, and I just want her. I want to thank her. I don't think growing up we don't appreciate our elders like we should, and I want to thank her for instilling in me um, me. And I didn't realize how much of my influence my maternal grandmother had on me until I lost her. And so I just want to say a thank you. And she hadn't seen me now like this when my mother was in the hospital
hmm
and I had my daughter. My grandmother, she could have ridiculed me. She could have did all of that. And I remember her taking me to the thrift store because we couldn't really afford it, and buying me clothes and um, not shaming me or doing any of that. She just bought me clothes, and that was her way of saying, we still got you, we still got you." So I want to say thank you for her endless love, even in despite even in the midst of me being lost. She still was able to love on me.
And I want to thank you, Principal Rockman, for coming on to the podcast. And I know
Yay!
that we we talked about some difficult parts of your life, and you may have to relive it, mentally. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna pat myself on the back because I did not shed a tear, and you
Yes,
should do
and
the same
I
too because you
purposely
went
said
through a
my
whole
story.
hour.
Yes, I could do it with crying, but I'm like, I'm not crying. I'm not crying. Not today.
You
Not
held
today.
back. There was some times like, but you
It was
held back
coming.
though.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
But
yes.
thank you so much. You're an inspiration. You are joy. I just love everything about you, your spirit,
Thank
and
you.
please, as you transition into your new position, just continue to just be you because there's so many young women who are hopefully listening to this and watching this, and they're gaining inspiration from your story.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It was such a pleasure. It was, like I said, I've followed you for the longest. So I'm honored to be on here. And hopefully my story will just bless someone. And I just encourage everyone to continue to do what they're called to do. Um, don't ever, don't let your light dim, let that light shine.
All right. So thank you so much, and hope you have a great rest of your Sunday.
Yay. Yes. It's going to be sensational.
Yes, it will. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Right. So y'all, I don't know what to say following that interview, but all I have to say is this. This is why I just love doing this podcast because there are so many stories out there that can touch people and really hit people in the spirit. And this was one of those stories today. So this is why we have to keep this platform going because there are people out there who need to hear these stories. And one way you can do that, once again, is by just sending a donation, small donation to the podcast, because that's what allows us to keep going. That's what allows us to keep bringing on phenomenal guests like Principal Rahman on to share their stories. And quite frankly, there are a lot of creators out there who are putting out some great content, and they're doing it out of pocket, and they're doing it for free. And this is a lot of work putting this podcast together. So yeah, please make sure you support the creators, particularly Black creators, because we know that there's a narrative out there about that. And we're going to keep this thing going. Now, if you love what you heard today, or if there are some past episodes that really hit you, please make sure you leave a review on Apple Podcast. Whether it's feedback to help us improve the podcast, or just an encouraging word to let us know how we're doing, all those words are helpful as we continue to build this platform and move forward. So, thank you again all for your support. And as I always tell you, I wish you a good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in the world. And we're going to do this again another time. Peace out, everybody.